Today on Green by Design,
we're blowing away conventional energy. Hi, and welcome to Green by Design. I'm Connie.
and I'm Greg. For the next half hour, we'll be your hosts as we look at what folks all around the tri-state area are doing to lead a healthier, more considered life.
That's right. New Jersey is an incredibly progressive state when it comes to renewable energy. In fact, they are home to the very first wind farm on the Atlantic coast.
In this episode, we're going to take a look at a completely non-toxic line of skincare products. We'll find out how to buy power from renewables with the Clean Power Choice program, and we'll share one chapter in the tale of someone who's trying to install a turbine in New Jersey and meeting with many challenges. So let's start by getting extreme.
For this episode's Extreme Green segment, we're taking a look at the coastal wind farm outside Atlantic City and speaking with Rick Dovey, president of the Atlantic County Utilities Authority. Here, obviously, you have the wind farm, you have the solar panels, but what goes on here? What's an overview of this facility?
Well, this is the regional wastewater treatment plant, the sewer plant that serves Atlantic County, Atlantic City area. About 30,000 people are served by this wastewater treatment plant. Energy costs, electricity, and gas are big parts of our budget. And there are three things that make this site well suited for a wind farm. It's windy, right? We knew that. Well, before anybody's going to invest $15–20 million, they want to verify that it really is windy. It's not enough for Rick to say, it's windy, you know, and
No, it's really windy.
second of all, we use a lot of electricity, and we use electricity night and day, year round, and we're going to be here for a long time.
In 2006, this facility became the first implementation of large-scale wind on the East Coast. Now, being the first, there are many questions to be answered, and the developers, Community Energy Incorporated, had to address the concerns of residents, local officials, and environmental groups before the project could proceed. Here's Rick Dovey.
The neighbors' first concern was noise. That was their concern. We said, well, here's the developer, Community Energy, the wind company, and us, took a small bus, out to western Pennsylvania to Somerset County, where there's a wind farm off the turnpike. We went out there, drove 5 hours, got there around lunchtime. Sid Trusty, the president, got out right in front of me, took 2 steps. We were right under a turbine. Turned around to me and said, "My air conditioner's louder than this. Let's go home, Rick." I go, wait, let's stretch our legs, let's have some lunch, you know. Let's experience this a little
I
bit.
assumed it was moving at the time.
It was moving, and he went back. We didn't have to tell a story, he told the story.
that's great.
That's not an issue. The next issue that we ran into really was birds. We're right next to the Forsyth National Wildlife. We're between Atlantic City, Venice Park, this neighborhood, and on this side of us is the Forsyth National Wildlife Refuge.
Did they approach you with that fear?
New Jersey Audubon did, and their issue really was not this site. It was really that New Jersey did not have specific rules and regulations and siting criteria for a wind farm. And what they were concerned about is that a precedent would be set without adequate scientific knowledge and so forth. Ultimately, what has happened is there was a settlement between the developer and New Jersey Audubon to study this site when the wind farm goes up, and that data will be used by the state of New Jersey to evaluate future wind farms that might be proposed either on land or in sea, and any establishing regulation. Kind of interesting thing is it's not really that unique, and it's really not very big compared to most wind farms, which are usually hundreds and hundreds of turbines, but most people don't see them. Here, it talks to you. It's that wonderful view you had coming down Route 30, and that impression is magnified times 30 million visitors a year.
Did you expect to be such a
I expected a couple-month bounce of interest and interviews and newspaper articles and visitors. It's almost 2 years later. We have visitors every day. You know, it's my father's birthday, it's Father's Day, it's our wedding anniversary. We want to come take a picture at the wind farm.
I read somewhere that you've had people come just to hug
Yes.
the turbine. And
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. This breaks it down by turbine, and each one has a name.
All right, we have Deidre, Casey, Kathy.
This is Mary is my wife.
As you can see, this site is home to more than just wind turbines. They also have an extensive photovoltaic solar power system with a really cool solar carport that you can see behind me here. And a few miles from here, the ACUA also has a power generator fueled by methane gas recovered from their landfill operation. So having firsthand experience with the 3 renewable energy technologies, I had to ask Rick, which performs best? Well, you're certainly in a unique position here. I mean, you have the solar, you have the wind, you have the methane capture. What's the better power generator?
Well, nothing comes close to the wind farm. The wind turbine on the wastewater site is 60% of our power in the course of a year. Solar is only 3%.
Wow.
So last year, we saved over $1 million energy costs. Hey, and a $64 million annual budget, that's significant. It's a symbol, it's a visible symbol that's consistent with our mission to protect and enhance the environment of Atlanta County.
Although we try to dwell on the positive, encouraging stories here at Green by Design, we do sometimes run up against some pretty frustrating challenges when trying to go green. Here is one such example.
In our auto episode, we introduced you to the environmentally sensitive Wayne Auto Spa. Well, the owner Rob Burke is now attempting to add a small turbine to his car wash's sustainable portfolio. The good news is that the project was pre-qualified for state installation rebates over a year ago. Now, the bad news is the project has been tied up with the town courts and has been unable to proceed.
Here are some highlights from the recent variance hearing.
What experts do you plan on putting before the board?
I have an individual who will testify with respect to, generally with respect to policy issues. I think your planner was looking for testimony regarding the benefits of the proposal.
Okay, Mr. Sauter, bring up your first witness. Would you like to state your qualifications?
I was trained by Vice President Al Gore to give his slide presentation on global warming. I'm a global warming and climate change educator, and I've been doing this since December 2006.
Well, what are your qualifications?
I was trained by the Vice President and scientists from NASA and Dr. Phil McCracken, who's a climate scientist. Also, scientists from the Union of Concerned Scientists.
In this area, you're just going to be giving comments, really, which really should be given, I would expect, at the public portion, not as an expert.
What was the subject again, Counselor?
Policy issues.
She'll be providing comments and policy background with respect to why renewable energy sources are to be promoted. I think she's qualified to present that kind of information. I'm not presenting her as a scientist.
I've also been asked by the Wayne Environmental Commission to do my educational program for them by Councilman Margiotta, and I'll be doing that on March 17th.
Well, we have 2 members of the Wayne Environmental Commission on this board. I don't know.
I still don't see that you're an expert. You cannot speak at this time.
We will present the testimony with respect to sound issues. We will retain a sound consultant. It had been discussed previously, and that's a direction that we will take.
Since this is a new area for the board, the wind turbine you're proposing is what size and height?
The tower is 120 feet tall.
Is there anywhere where a similar type structure exists?
At the Liberty Science Center in
That's
Jersey City.
120 feet?
Yeah.
At this point, I will open it up to the public to ask any questions.
Do we know if there's any standards or guidelines as to where a tower such as this should be placed with respect to highways, traffic, building structures, children's daycare centers, and residences?
If this variance is granted, it would still have to meet local building codes and get a permit and be built in accordance with the Uniform Construction Code of the state of New Jersey?
I believe it would be, yes.
And I want to know if this is played into your consideration. Ice falling off the blades or being thrown off the slingshot trajectory.
For the placement of this? No.
Yes.
No, because I'm not experienced in ice forming on top of the turbines.
Mr. Burke, is it fair to say that by the time this process is done, you're going to end up spending more money trying to get the variance than you got in a state grant?
We're approaching that now.
You know, in fairness to the town, it seems that many of the objections to this project stem from the lack of precedent, really, and codes to abide by.
Now, although the state has shown some great leadership by offering generous financial incentives, as you can see, actually getting qualified systems past planning boards and installed can still prove challenging.
Well, yeah, I guess somebody's got to be first.
Yeah.
And while the future is unclear for this Wayne turbine, there are other towns like Ocean Gate that are actively pursuing wind.
We've actually adopted a ordinance for the residents of the borough so they can put up a wind turbine, obviously with restrictions, and we are actually moving forward in the next process of putting up our own wind turbine and getting the funding in place very, very soon.
Oh, realistically, I think we have to look at wind, we have to look at renewable energy sources, and if we don't start looking at them now, it's like everything else is. In 10 years, it's just going to be much harder to do. I think the bottom line is it has to start somewhere. And the first person to try it always runs into these type of difficulties. The zoning issues are the key issue to make it go, and obviously that's why you're here at the zoning board tonight, and there's difficulties with it. It's new to New Jersey, so hopefully is that the definition of an expert on wind gets stretched a little bit because there's just not that many around to do it, and the people who have been in the business for years in a smaller scale are maybe not be degreed, maybe not be there, but they have the hands-on experience that would be necessary to testify. And I believe there will be some people tonight testifying to that effect.
Now, as the mayor was alluding, unless the state can set forth siting specifications, or unless towns start taking some initiative to educate themselves, the cost of individual installations can easily overrun returns. Thankfully, Ocean Gate is taking action to alleviate this problem.
We have a whole day of education for not the residents, it's actually the elected officials in towns surrounding us that are interested in doing it. So it's a big day and the next step in renewable energy.
What a great example you are, both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There are currently 17 other small wind projects that are approved for installation in New Jersey. There are also 3 proposals under review for large-scale offshore wind. Now, wind power is definitely coming to New Jersey. Whether it's going to be at the local level or only as large-scale utility kind of remains to be seen. But there is a way that you can show your support for renewable energy sources right now.
That's right. It's called the Clean Power Choice Program. Greg and I are doing what we can to reduce our carbon footprint, and that means efficiency wherever possible. But for the power we do use, we wanted to know that we were getting it from clean sources. So earlier today, Greg had a video conference with Paul Kopelman of Community Energy about how the program works.
Paul, thank you for joining us. My understanding is that for a slight premium, folks can buy their way into renewables. They don't have to put up solar panels on their roof or put up a turbine in the backyard. Is that essentially the concept?
That's exactly right. This is a program that gives customers in New Jersey the opportunity to choose how their electricity is made. And for the first time, they have the ability to choose an option like wind power or hydroelectric or solar electricity, which is the type of renewable energy that doesn't use fuel. There's no combustion, no smoke, no emissions. So it's good for the air, it's great for the environment.
What should people expect in terms of an expense for the average home?
The typical home, depending on the product they choose, how much they use, is probably going to be paying an extra $5 to $15 per month on their electricity bill.
You're helping to repay the investors and therefore encourage more investment in renewable energy. Is that essentially what's driving this whole program?
I wouldn't characterize it as repaying the investors. I would say that that renewable energy projects, like new wind projects around the country, build into their financials a revenue stream that has to come from a voluntary market, like what's being offered in New Jersey, or a compliance market, a mandate at the state level that requires utilities to get a certain percentage of their electricity from renewable resources. So that revenue stream is very important to the construction of the wind farm in the first place. When we look at building wind farms, we're counting on that revenue stream in order to make the project viable long before we break ground for that project. And it helps us as we look to plan the next projects regionally and nationwide.
Power comes from different sources into the grid. Can you give us kind of just an overview of how the grid works?
What we've got when you look at those overhead lines that carry electricity is a fairly complex power pool. And if you can imagine all the types of electricity generation, whether that's a coal plant, a nuclear plant, a natural gas facility, an oil facility, or a wind farm, all of those feed electricity into those wires, which you draw into your home every time you flip on your light switch or your computer. So we often describe the power pool literally like a pool or a bathtub. If you can imagine all the electricity generation at the facilities being their own faucet that pours water into this bathtub. And every time you flip on your light switch, you drain a little bit of water out of that bathtub. So by definition, it's a mix of all the different types of electricity that are going into that pool.
And by checking a box on this ballot, you're not giving your money to a coal plant, you're instead giving your money to a wind farm or a small or large solar provider.
Yeah, to continue with that metaphor, you are enabling the renewable facility faucet to run. So it can pour water into that bathtub, making the water in that bathtub cleaner for everybody.
So how is it that people actually enroll in this? I think there's a ballot that comes occasionally with your utility bill, and then there is also a way to find it via the website?
A couple times a year, usually in the spring and the fall, the electric bills will include a ballot like this one that's sent out to all homes that enables you to sign up through the program. The Office of Clean Energy themselves maintains a website that enables you to sign up. And then each of the suppliers have websites and call centers that will help customers get enrolled in the program.
I want to thank Paul Kopelman from Community Energy for doing a video conference with me. The video may look a little grainy, but it's a nice way to save on some emissions.
Absolutely. A couple of other things before we wrap this episode. First, thanks much to everyone who has sent us questions and comments. Special thanks to John for his worms in the houseplants idea, and Dr. Ellis Jones for sending a copy of his book, The Better World Shopping Guide. Thank you very much.
Now, lastly, we want to share that Green by Design TV just won 3 2008 Telly Awards for news, entertainment, and information. So thanks for making this an exciting year for Connie and I. And until the next time, keep thinking green. It's good for the earth.
And it's good for you.
Watch your step.
Oh.
Everybody's talking, but nobody's listening. Oh no, what am I to say? Seems like there must be another way. Yeah. And I wonder what I'm thinking.